So good morning. No matter who you are or wherever you're watching this, you are welcome here. I hope that you're safe. I hope that you're well. There's a few announcements I'd like to make this morning before we begin our worship. First of all, to recognize that there are Christian education resources that are available on the website again, which is swanzeyucc.org. Also, the announcement is this morning that we have a reopening task group that has been formed, and they will be developing a written document to inform members as well as folks in the community about future plans. This includes a way for people to stay connected or be connected in new and different ways. So an example of this effort today is there's going to be a Zoom coffee hour or fellowship gathering, which will be taking place after today's worship. So please send an email to the address in the comments to be sent the link and password to be included in that Zoom coffee hour following the service. You also may already have one of those in your email, but if you also would check that, if it's not there, feel free to take a look. I think it may be actually on this side of the page, but feel free to take a look actually in the comments section there, and you'll be able to send out an email to get a link to that. So this morning we're going to bring in our light to O God of earth and altar. And here these are our opening words. O God of earth and altar, bow down and hear our cry. Our earthly rulers falter, our people drift and die. The walls of gold entomb us, the sword of scorn divides. Take not thy thunder from us, but take away our pride. This day also let us pass our peace. May the peace of God be with you. But God makes peace within us, let us claim it. God makes peace between us, so let us share it. And now, may the peace of God be with you. So today, our ancient testimony that's going to be supporting our sermon, or our meditation, is from Genesis 18, verses 1 through 15, as well as chapter 21, and it's going to be verses 1 through 7. That's actually going to be part of the sermon today. So our modern message is going to be called A Problem Conceiving. So A Problem Conceiving today is our message. As a young boy, when I was about first or second grade, I brought home a list of questions, on which there was one question that really kind of caught my attention, and it was, do time machines exist? Now this was 4 decades ago. Remember, I'm 6 or 7 at that point. And with my parents' help, as well as the help of the local library, I wound up concluding, yes, time machines do exist. Of course, there's recording devices. At that point, there was just things that were put on tape. VCRs and video recording was starting to come into fashion. Now we have cell phones and we're able to do this. We're recording this as we speak. But old-fashioned things, like we call them books, they allow us to actually go to events and people of another time in a different way. In some senses, they help us with our imagination. And our imagination, in some senses, may be a very divine aspect of who we are. It allows us to move beyond the mere moment or the mere possibility or patterns that are already existing in our lives. So remember that, because that'll be coming up here a little bit later towards the end of the sermon. But I want us today to step into our Wayback Machine, this time machine I've been talking about, back to February 26th of 2020. This is the last time that we heard this story of Abraham. And I want to talk about the story behind today's story just very briefly and go back, because Abraham's going to be with us over the next several weeks as well. And it's good to hear that backstory. It's also good because Abraham is pivotal to understanding several of the major world religions. So we're going to get into that time machine, go back 3 months to a different time indeed. And these were some of the words spoken about Abraham, or known as Abram at that point, on February 26th, 2020, here in this church. Our reading this morning comes from the book of Genesis, and it introduces us to Abram. Many of you might better know Abram by the name he is given later, Abraham. Abram is second only to Moses as the major figure in the Hebrew Scriptures. The three major world religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all trace their roots to this figure, so much so that these three religions are known as the children of Abraham. Abram has a life full of challenge, laughter, and conquest. He deals with the mightiest leaders of the day and almost sacrifices a son. What we hear this morning, again, February 26, 2020, is the beginning of his journey, where it all began for him and in some ways for us. And this is from that reading. God told Abram, "Leave your country, your family, and your father's home, for a land that I will show you. I'll make you a great nation and bless you. All the families of the earth will be blessed through you." So Abram left. Abram was 75 years old. Now remember, this is the first mention we have of Abram and his sacred story. This is the beginning of his journey, and he is already 75 years old. Abram has no children. In fact, he and his wife Sarai are barren. Abram has been given a great promise by God in which he will be the start of a great nation and a blessing to the entire earth. Quite a promise to a couple that has no offspring and are beyond childbearing age. It is enough to make one laugh at the absurd prospect of it all. In fact, Sarah will. So a perpetuous promise has been made by God. See, Abram's journey has very little to do with geographic change. Abram's end of the deal is to leave everything he knows. He is to leave behind all his known customs and comforts, friends and family, regularities and rhythms of his life. Everything that gives his life meaning. His country, his family, his home. The source of his power and identity are to be left behind. Leave it all and just go. Go where? God doesn't give him a location or address. God never says. Now think about that for a moment. Most of us setting out on a trip need to know the destination. Most of us want our journeys to go from the unknown to the known. Move from the strange and unpredictable to the safe and the secure. We want to go from promise to guarantee. Abram lets go of this desire. He responds by choosing trust over fear. He is no longer swayed by three deep-seated fears most people get caught up in. A fear of the unknown we cannot control. A fear of others who are different from us. and a fear of powerlessness in the face of what seems to be impossible. And so the Wayback Machine stops, and it brings us back here to this moment on 6/14/2020. And the interesting thing is if you're watching this on another day and have found this, in some senses this is a time capsule or a Wayback Machine now for you, some form of time machine. But I want us to bring us back to today's reading. I just wanted to make sure that you had some of the backstory on Abram, or now we're going to call him Abraham's life. And this takes place in the 18th chapter of Genesis, as well as the 21st chapter. And here's the reading. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up, and he saw 3 men that were standing over him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. He said, "My Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread that you may refresh yourselves. And after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it, and make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant, who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared, and he set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. Now this is the first part of the reading, and it's about hospitality. It's about welcoming the stranger. And you know what? That's a message we certainly need to hear these days. And I know a lot of people are going to preach that, as they should. But I want to take a different direction this morning. I want us to think a little bit more about something that the rest of the reading brings up. But before we explore that, I want you to put this in your imagination, or put it in the front of your consciousness. When and why do we laugh? Sure, people think it's because there's something funny or something humorous. All of these things, a good joke, a belly roll, that type of laughter. That's what usually comes to mind, but that's just not the laughter that exists. And I want to walk through the rest of the reading to be able to explain some of that. Laughter is about more than humor and a good time and something just being funny. So here's the second part of the reading. They said to him, again Abraham, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he said, "There, in the tent." Then one said, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah will have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent entrance behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have grown old, and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?' Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? At the set time I will return to you in due season, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. He said, "Oh yes, you did laugh." Now I want to go back to the laughter that's taking place in this part of the section, this part of the reading. So it first says, Sarah laughed to herself. I think we all have done this, right? Nobody else hears it. It's one of those, yeah, right moments, or as if moments, or it seems absurd. It seems odd. You're scoffing at what's taking place. There is no way, no way that's ever going to happen. This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not going to let anybody else know that, but I'm laughing to myself. Now, the second part actually happens, it mentions laughter in this part of the passage. Why did Sarah laugh? Why? Why? That other one questions. Is it so strange? Is it really that ridiculous? That's what's being brought up with this question of why. And then the third time laughter is mentioned. But Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh. So there's denial. There's refusal, or she refuses to acknowledge. She just plays it off. You know this type of laughter. I certainly didn't say that. I did not laugh. I didn't mean that. You must be kind of mistaken. You know that fear, that nervous laughter, that tense laughter. I imagine a hyena in the background. That's the type of laughter I'm thinking about there. But then there's, in the rest of this passage, at least this portion of it, says, he said, oh yes, you did laugh. So he's calling her out. Yes, maybe a moment it's uncomfortable, but it's almost like, oh, yes, you did. So it's an acknowledgement, another type of laughter that maybe brings us into this moment. That maybe breaks down some of that uncomfort, some of that tenseness that was there. Now, on the surface, there's this whole problem that's being brought up and kind of laughed about. It's a problem, but on the surface, this is what it appears to be. It's a problem conceiving, and we're talking physically at this moment. But I think that there's something else going on too. So keep this problem of conceiving in your mind, along with imagination, as we finish the rest of today's reading. And there it says, the Lord dealt with Sarah as he said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken. Abraham gave the name Isaac to his son, which Sarah bore him. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Now Sarah said, God has brought laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. Now laughter comes up 3 more times here at the end of the passage. One you're not going to know. Isaac, the name means laughter, or he who laughs. So Isaac is synonymous with laughter. So if you're named Isaac, now you know what your name means. But then it says here that Sarah says, God has brought laughter for me. So she's rejoicing personally about what is taking place. And she continues, everyone who hears will laugh with me. So this is a rejoicing collectively in the community with everyone that she knows, her family, her friends. It's an amazing thing. Be joyful. But here's the thing I think that comes up too in this passage, that it's below the surface. It is a problem about conception, or it is a problem conceiving. But conceiving that another way is possible. This is about a lack of imagination, believing anything else is possible. Remember I said maybe imagination is a divine capacity of human beings. It's something that we have. Of course, it's misused quite often. But this imagination, it takes us beyond. It takes us beyond our problem. It takes us beyond our moment. It takes us beyond our pattern. It starts to allow us to know that something else, another way, is possible. Which brings me, so I want to apply this story now. See, I want to go through the laughter that actually Sarah had. If on February 26th, the last time that Abraham was brought up If somebody would have come to me and they would have revealed to me what would have taken place over the next 3 months, somebody said to me, Damon, there's going to be a pandemic that happens here in the midst of the United States as well as the world. I would have said on February 26th, well, I would be like, wow, that's kind of surprising. I may have laughed it off. I heard about this thing in Wuhan, but our government doesn't seem to think it's important. If somebody would have told me that there would be tens of millions of people now that are unemployed, I would have probably thought that was strange and maybe laughed about it. If they would have said to me, Damon, that there is now people in the streets that are out there that are demanding something be done about systematic racism and that people finally be treated fairly, I would think that would be very odd. So yes, initially there would be a sense of laughter for me. I would be like, yeah, right. That would be when Sarah's keeping it to herself. I would be, yeah, right. There's no way that's going to happen. That's just way beyond what the possibilities that I could imagine at the moment. But then, in the story, there's a question that comes, and it's like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. And then comes that fear and that uncomfortable laughter. Wait, this could be true, couldn't it? Wait a minute, and what if it is? Now we come to Isaac. We come to Isaac, this other part, this other third of the story that I just relayed just a few moments ago. See, Isaac, again, means laughter. And what happens is, when you think of a child symbolically, when you think of them in a dream or, again, as a symbol, what winds up taking place, and the bird just hit the window, so who knows? So if Isaac is thought about symbolically, Isaac in a child represents something new, a new possibility that comes. And many people, quite frankly, have problems conceiving in this way. In other words, thinking symbolically or thinking about new and different things. New beyond the pattern that they're in, beyond the rut that they're in, beyond the moment, beyond the circumstance. Many people can't do that. So there is a problem of conceiving in that way. But not only is there a problem conceiving in that way, but there's still one more thing about conception and conceiving I want to bring up this morning too. There are many, many people that cannot conceive that all human beings, not just the ones that look like me, or the ones that have wealth like me, are in fact human beings. They cannot conceive of that. They cannot say they, in some senses, are like me. They would prefer to have me first and me only. They would prefer to serve only their own interests. They would prefer not to consider other people human at all. That is a complete lack of imagination and being able to conceive of anything other than their very own self-centeredness. So this day, I hope you realize that we have time machines all over the place, whether they be books, maybe videos like this one. Maybe, who knows, maybe I'll find this in 5 years from now and look back on who I was at this point in my life. Maybe you've done the same with pictures or scrapbooks, newspaper articles, baby shoes, who knows? But there are things that touch our memory. But we have the ability to be able to transcend this moment, to transcend what is taking place, to transcend our circumstances, and to consider something new, to consider something different. What it does is that imaginal, divine component of us that moves us beyond what is here and now. So this day, may your imagination be fertile, giving you possibilities that may take place in this world. May you yourself conceive that there are other people out there just like you. Some of them are suffering. Some of them need to be respected in new and different ways. In this day, may new possibility be born to each of us, so that we may laugh together and rejoice. Amen. So at this day, I'd ask that you would join me in prayer. So let's turn our hearts, our minds, the very center of ourselves to that which has given us life. Holy One and living God, we are thankful for being human, though sometimes we overstretch, we go beyond our limitations. But we realize that there are parts of us that are divine. Our imagination may be one of them, taking us beyond this mere moment, this mere circumstance, allowing us to conceive of new and different possibilities. We realize now that there is a great deal of pain that we see in the world. A lot of stuff has been brought up, bubbled up from the ugliness and the underside, that underbelly of us, that many people have had to tolerate too long. Now that it has come into our awareness, may we make the changes that are necessary so that all may be considered human, so that there are no second and third citizens in this country. We thank you this day too, Holy One, for these little time machines that we have, these stories that take us back, these sacred stories that take us back many, many years. But it's not the years that are important. They take us to the places that are important, to these primary patterns and things that allow us to know that human life, again, flows upon certain currents in certain ways, so that we can become aware and bring about our better selves. This day, we lift up the prayers of people that have brought them together here in the comments. We also realize that people have prayers on their very own hearts. We also pray for Jim Lamoth because we know that he has been having a rough time of it too. So now in the silence of ourselves, we turn to you. We turn to you with those things we want to say thank you for, that we want to express gratitude for, perhaps those things that we have in our imaginations, those new possibilities that we would like to see in this world. But we turn to you too, Holy One, because we know just as we have an imagination, it can take us in good directions. We also have an imagination that can turn dark at times. And we know that there is darkness in this world as well as darkness in ourselves. And we would ask that light and love will come as a result and be in those places too. Abba, we know that Jesus called you this, and it's something like Father or Papa. But as always, we know that this is just a place to begin. We are thankful for the support of all good fathers, but we know that there is much else that we do not understand about you. But we don't need to understand it necessarily. We realize that you are there. Of course, we have to become conscious so we can bring the better parts, those better things that should be taking place in the world. that we could use our imagination to better what is here for us, not only individually, but collectively. So we are thankful for your presence amongst us, the imagination within us, and the ability to conceive of those things new. Amen. One of the things I've been asked today, too, is, or over the past couple weeks, is to include the Lord's Prayer. And what I want to do is provide us with a little bit more imagination in some respects, too. I want us to hear the Lord's Prayer in different forms, because there are other ones out there other than what is traditionally said by this church. So this is one of the Lord's Prayers that is out there. I'd like you to hear it. It says, "Dear one, closer to us than our own hearts, farther from us than most distant star, you are beyond naming. May your powerful presence become obvious, not only in the undeniable glory of the sky, but also in the seemingly base and common processes of the earth. Give us what we need day by day to keep body and soul together, because clever as you have made us, we still owe our existence to you. We recognize that to be reconciled with you, we must live peaceably and justly with other human beings, putting hate and bitterness behind us. We are torn between our faith in your goodness and our awareness of the evil in your creation. So deliver us from the temptation to despair. Yours alone is the universe in all its majesty and beauty. Amen." I hope in some senses this new way of hearing the Lord's Prayer has brought something to your imagination. So at this time, I'm going to ask Kyle to play "Let There Be Peace on Earth," and I will be back for a benediction. So this day before I give the benediction, I just want to remind you that there will be a Zoom fellowship time following the service now. You'll be able to find that on this side of the comments if you'd like to be able to get an email about that, how to get in if you haven't found one there already. Also, remember, we are talking about imagination right at the moment. We ourselves are gathering as a reopening the worship and reopening the church. We're trying to find and imagine new ways of being church in this uncertain time. So please go this day. Go this day with a fertile imagination, the ability to conceive of new possibilities in the midst of these strange times. May we be able to go beyond the patterns that have controlled us, or those things that have bound us in ways that have hurt us. May we find what is truly there, and truly good, and truly blessed. So may you know love, may you know joy, and may you always know peace. Be well, my friends, and be blessed.